Hey everybody, welcome back to Movie Couple Live. Happy Saturday. I'm Wendy.
I'm Dustin.
And we have our special guest joining us today with gravitas, John Rocha.
What's up, everyone? Thanks for having me on, Wendy. It's good to see you guys. It's been so long, so it's great to see you guys, at least virtually. It's great to see you guys. So thank you so much for having me on. I'm looking forward to this.
This is going to be so much fun. I think this episode is going to be a lot more of like catching up. I do have some topics picked out for us to kind of chat about, but I just want to know, like, what's been up with you? What are you doing during this whole time you have with yourself?
Well, I mean, like, it's been crazy since January, when that happened. It took about a month for me to kind of figure out what I wanted to do, how to get my feet back under me, and what was the next step. And I was like, well, do I go find another job? Do I go and explore another field? But then, just kind of slowly but surely, I was like, no, I think I've always wanted to do the YouTube channel. Let's see what happens. I don't have any restrictions now. I don't have any fears about what I can talk about, what I can't talk about, who I can reference. So screw it. So in February, after my girlfriend kind of got my head straight, because I was kind of really spinning out a couple of times there in January trying to figure out what I was going to do, I just started building the Outlaw Nation channel, and that's what I've been doing. Right. You never know how good the friend can, your partner can be to get you kind of square. And she was like, enough of this. You've had a month. Let's go. And so February 1st was when I really fully dialed into what I needed to do. And thankfully, so many great people who follow me and who are friends of mine and also who are fans and followers of mine, like, volunteered their time, volunteered their skills, volunteered their commitment to it. And so far, we've put the Outlaw Nation channel on the map to a degree. We've gotten some great guests. Brian Ward's done an incredible job with our opening videos, and Jake Iacobetta over there from the Action Army, he's done a great job with our thumbnails. And I've been very fortunate to create shows that people actually want to watch for the most part. And so that's been great. And now, slowly but surely, guests are coming on, like Brian Cox and a bunch of other people have come on to the show. I just dropped Craig Fairbrass, his interview this morning, British actors in one of these incredible British crime films that are going on right now. So just piece by piece, step by step. And the Outlaw Nation show is really the one that's like the pillar of the whole thing. And that's getting a lot of views as well. So people have been very gracious with their time. And I just feel like this has been a nice change of pace for me. And I feel very relaxed doing it and just kind of focusing on building it and learning as I go along.
Yeah. I remember watching you and listening you do your long form interviews, and I just gotta say, I really like the way you do your interviews, because sometimes I think people forget that in interview it's still a conversation back and forth, and a lot of times I find people focus like on themselves, and I was like, but you're interviewing this person, like, I want to hear about this person's XYZ. What your thoughts on this person? You know what I'm saying? Like, you can do a separate video for that. So I just want to commend you on the way you conduct your interviews. It's really thoughtful, and having worked with you a lot in the past, it's always nice to kind of, when the interview ends and you hear, the publicist say, wow, those are great questions. That was a great interview. He had a great time. He had a great time.
Yeah, and you know what, Wendy, first of all, thank you so much. It's very kind of you to say that. I do very much focus on making the subject of the interview the most important person in the room. It does not mean that occasionally, like half an hour in, I'll throw in a little tidbit or reference to something from my life. But most of the times, I'm trying to make sure that my subject of the interview feels heard, it feels respected, and feels like the person walked into here just wanting to have a conversation with them about their life, about their project, about their career, in a way that isn't about gotcha journalism or trying to get clicks or trying to boost my own ego by interviewing them. No, it's very much like, let's see if we can connect as human beings about what you do, and let's make it relaxed and fun and conversational. And I think that's one of the main reasons why I've kept such great contacts with those publicists, because they all have been they've all reached out to me after I left, after the Coletta thing happened. They all reached out to me like, we want to keep working with you, let us know where you land, we want to bring you our clients. And when I started my channel, reached out to them a month later, they were like, absolutely, we'll start filtering people in. So it's been great. It's been great to have such access. I mean, the director of Scoob was on earlier this week for 45 minutes talking about his film. So being able to get those people on my channel is kind of a really kind of feather in my cap in my mind, because it means I've done a good job creating good relationships with those publicists and making their clients feel heard and respected by me. So thank you for saying that, Wendy.
Yeah, you got it. And of course, if you guys want to, if you don't already follow John on his many platforms, you can go to YouTube. The channel is just, I know you named it Outlaw the Outlaw Nation.
The Outlaw Nation.
The URL is still John Rocha, right?
Yeah, it's youtube.com/John Rocha Says. They wouldn't let me have the Rocha Says, so I had to change it to John Rocha Says. But yes, that's
Did somebody take it?
Yeah, somebody had it, or it was something with the algorithm where the person who was handling my social media at the time said, it's not a good thing to use. Say your full name. It makes it easier for people to find. And I'm like, oh, okay, sure. You know better than me at this point, so go ahead.
This is true.
Do it that way.
I just want to say, we had a plan to both wear hats at the beginning of this.
I had mine, and then there we go.
We were going to open the show like this.
But I'm looking at my hat. And my hat is just, really bad and terrible. I mean, it's so super cheesy looking.
Our hats don't have gravitas.
None whatsoever. It is lacking in the gravitas feel.
Oh my god! But we wanted to give a little nod to you and your character.
Oh yeah, the Outlaw, right? Yeah. The hat's in the other room. I would have totally worn it if I had known you guys. I would have totally got there. That's a nice one.
Yeah,
I like that more one. Indiana Jones-ish.
Yes, it
kind
is.
of a thing.
Or Chinatown.
This is more of like a fedora.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's got like a Chinatown vibe to it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So aside from creating your own YouTube empire, what else have you been watching with all your time?
Well, to be honest with you, you and I know Lindley is a big British TV fan, so we've been diving into a lot of British shows over there on the Acorn app and on the BritBox. And, we watched The Bay. We watched a show called Victim. We watched a show recently called Dead Water Fell with David Tennant, which we really enjoyed. But I recently, over the last few weeks, have really finally walked into House of Cards. And so I've been going through those seasons like crazy, just crazy. I'm about to finish season 3 and jump into season 4. And I, the whole time I was like, why did I not watch this from the beginning? It checks all my boxes: political intrigue, great acting, some really fun storylines, and some fantastic direction. So all of that's what I've been really focusing on in terms of Netflix. And then, of course, the newer stuff, What We Do in the Shadows. And I've been really obsessed with that show. And so there's so much that I've been doing and watching and getting offered the screeners for so many of those films that are coming, like I think The Portrait of the Thief or whatever it's going to be. There's The Patron of the Thief, rather. There's so much coming through that I'm getting a chance to watch as well. So that's been fun too.
That's amazing. We've been binging She-Ra like crazy. So we finally we're finally on season 5.
Nice.
And we're thinking, how is this like cartoon? Supposedly it's aimed towards kids and it has us crying in all like every other episode. We're like, what is this?
Yeah, it really does reach the feels for me. I mean, it really does kind of squeeze my heart every now and then. You're just like, oh my goodness, they're actually going here in this kids cartoon show. And I've just loved how, I mean, it really does give me kind of like Avatar the Last Avatar the Last Airbender vibes. And just how it's so mature. And I love the fact that they don't feel like they have to dumb it down for kids. And it makes it so much more appealing for adults.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, I think it's on purpose, right? The animated series, they have to kind of step up their game because there are so many great ones out there. And if you want to get noticed, you can't just come with like, oh, I just paid the lip service to this thing when I rebooted it. She-Ra had to take on a whole nother life, kind of like My Little Pony. You compare the 80s My Little Pony to the current My Little Pony, it's two completely different things. And but it caters to what the fandom is looking for now. So it makes all the sense in the world with how they're handling that with She-Ra. So
for sure. We've been enjoying it so much. And it's funny because like during the quarantine, it's like we're home all the time because we're doing the whole social distancing thing. And I'm like, okay, I've got all the time in the world to catch up on every single thing I want to watch. And I still feel like I can't absorb it all. It's kind of insane.
Yeah, it's weird, right? But also because there's so much of it, right? It's like going into a candy store and you're just like, oh yeah, the first 30 minutes, you're just like, oh yeah. And then after 30 minutes, like, I don't really feel like, exactly. There's like, there's too much candy. I can't do it. I need a break, And so I think it's the same way. You have so much to watch. And there's an indefinite amount of time. You're not sure when you're going to come back or what's going to happen. So you're like, well, do I get into this? Do I not get into it? What do I have time for? So you're kind of just following your gut and your instinct and what it wants to watch. And it was no surprise to hear so many people say that they had kind of gone back to watch films that they had loved before because that's kind of like comfort food. The movie watching, comfort movie watching is what that is. And they go back and remember why they like those movies because they're worried about what's happening. They're scared about their jobs or the money or, you know, the COVID stuff, you know, the health wise. So it's like you run back to a place of comfort, and those movies provide comfort. And then occasionally you'll branch out and watch something new, explore something new. But a lot of times people are watching like old reruns of Friends or old movies that they've watched before. So yeah.
Yeah, it is. It's like a good Friends episode is a lot like just like a good plate of comfort food. You're like, yes, I know it. I'm familiar with it.
Yeah.
I'm gonna get hurt by it.
I do have to find it weird though when you're watching movie or TV shows or movies or things that you've seen so many years ago.
Yeah.
And you see them going about their normal life, like going into a coffee shop or walking around in a huge crowd, and you're kind of like, no, social distance. And it's just like, oh wait, no, that's right. That was years ago.
Yeah.
That's not a part of reality.
No.
Well, it depends on where you go in California. It is still a part of reality, unfortunately. I've seen it a few times. People, you know, without masks just hovered around each other. We were in El Segundo this morning, saw like 10 people on a golf course, no masks on, just talking it up right next to each other. So it's crazy. It's still happening, unfortunately. But yes.
Anxiety. I was like, no.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, Dustin, you're watching that stuff and you're going like, wait, no, get away, keep the distance. You know, what are you doing?
Add that to the things that give us anxiety. Crowd. It already kind of did before, but not for the same reason. People.
You're right.
Just people in general.
Just people in general. Well, we'll go ahead and hop into our first topic. But before we do that, we are doing also some Q&A with Rocha. So if you got them, we've got some from emails and Patreon. But if you've got them, go ahead and put them in the chat and we'll get to them throughout the show. We'll sprinkle them in. But our very first topic is our thoughts on the Tenet trailer. And just to give you guys a little bit of insight on Tenet, this is like the actual synopsis that I found. So obviously we know it's from director Christopher Nolan, stars John David Washington and Robert Pattinson. And they armed with only one word, Tenet, and fighting for the survival of the whole world. The protagonist, which is like what I guess John David Washington goes by in the movie, journeys through a world of international espionage on a mission that could unfold in something beyond real time. But it's not time travel; it's inversion,
more like time manipulation.
What's your take on the trailer?
Now, I liked the trailer overall. I thought it was really well done and, showed you just a little bit more of what they're going to be tackling in the film itself. I love that. And John David Washington, I mean, we've lived long enough where John David Washington, the son of Denzel Washington, is now leading films, which is kind of insane to think about. But I really was impressed by a lot of the visuals, a lot of cinematography that you saw in those scenes. I mean, that just those quick snippets of them going through like the Hollywood Bowl or some symphony that they're doing where everyone's passed out, that look really like chilling to watch. I love Pattinson looked mature as hell in that sequence where he's talking about the plane and crashing it into a building. But then you see like what they're talking about, the time inversion stuff. And I did a bunch of research and reading, like even Newsweek did an article about it. Like, what does time inversion mean? And it's essentially creating an alternate dimension where you can step in and out of the current dimension when you see fit and adjust the roles of the passage of time depending on what's happening. So it's almost like Wanted, flipping that bullet around a human being. It's almost like you're flipping the timeline around a thing that's currently happening and coming back towards it. So it's very, very interesting. And we're obsessed with time travel always in our movies for decades. So this is kind of a new and interesting approach. And even John David Washington said, like, what Nolan is doing here is going to decorate the next 10 to 15 years of filmmaking. So that speaks volumes about what we can expect in the movie for sure.
And that is just something that Christopher Nolan does so well, is take a certain concept or a certain idea and then be like, okay, now let's flip it on its head and look at it at a completely different angle and view. Mm-hmm. And I just love what he's doing with time travel. The fact that, there's always a couple of movies that do come out that just completely changes everyone's concept of what the genre of time travel or sci-fi or superhero movies can be. And the way that Christopher Nolan can really manipulate a story timeline is very, very interesting. Like what he did, Memento. I thought that was just such an original idea when it came out, and everyone was just blown away by it. So I'm I'm thirsty for it. I really am just like, I want to see more. I want to see this movie. And it's one of those movies, though, that I am 100% willing to wait a little bit longer to be able to go see it in a theater. This is one of those movies that I'm like, no, 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 no. You need to see this on IMAX. You need to see it on a huge screen, because something that Wendy and I really noticed in the trailer was the way he played with sound. The way that he was playing with the reversal of all of these sounds that we are very familiar with in movies, you know, gunshots, the bullet hitting the glass, but then hearing it in reverse and then seeing the motion. It's so trippy. And it's just a great way to be able to start playing with your time and your storytelling and to unveil a plot line. So I'm at first I was kind of like, this movie seems interesting, but this newest trailer has just now made me so excited.
What'd you think, Wendy?
I mean, Christopher Nolan, like, ever since Memento, I was like, oh, this is something different. This is a director and a writer as well who really can tell a story from a different point of view and can really give a fresh spin on it. And I think that's why I don't mind waiting for like a long time between, like, for example, between this one and Inception. It's been years, but I think it takes time to craft a story like this, and it takes time to find the right actors to play in it, and to find the, like, you got to really craft, like, you have to really know what you're writing in order to make it a good movie and put it on screen and know how to direct it. Because like the trailer, it's so like, I remember the very first trailer I watched for Tenet, and I watched it like 3 times. I'm like, it's really cool, but like, what is it? I don't get it. I don't get it. So I am looking forward to it. So do you think, and a lot of people in the chat are asking this too, do you think they're going to hold on to their original release date, or do you think they'll move it?
It's a good question. I mean, Nolan has said he doesn't want to move it. Nolan has said he wants to keep it where it is. You're seeing this antsiness from the country to kind of come back to things. But there was that survey that just dropped. I think Variety reported on it, or THR, and a recent survey that was done a few days ago with 1,000 people. They were interviewed. How many would want to go back to the theater or see a movie at home if it drops on the same day? And it was like 70% would be willing to just stay home and watch the movie on the day it drops rather than going to the theater. So although I think this thing is, I agree with Dustin, you got to see this thing in IMAX. That's the best way to appreciate it. I don't know how many people are going to be running to the theater to see this movie because of the fear of COVID or the fear of the coronavirus situation. And look, it wasn't like movie theaters were the cleanest places to go already. You know, it wasn't like, you know, everyone was really respectful in movie theaters and sat, you know, distances away and ate their popcorn at the right time and didn't have their cell phones on. So like, you go into a movie theater now and you're paying that price, and, you know, you've got people who are getting paid minimum wage or a little bit above minimum wage. How much are they willing to get into these fights with people who come in not wearing a mask or take their masks off or don't sit 6 feet away from each other? So I think a lot of that is factoring into the reaction to it. So although I agree that, although I champion Nolan wanting to release the film when he wants to release the film as the director, I also think as the studio, you got to be a little bit more big picture. You got to think about it a little more big picture. Like, well, where can we get the most bang for our buck? Do we really want to be the biggest film, the first film to come out with this film out into the theater? Because if it bombs because people don't want to go because they're afraid, then, you know, you kind of shot yourself in the foot in that way, because you're also not going to get the VOD profit that you might have gotten if you dropped it at home.
For sure.
Well, that is also another interesting fact. I mean, what would happen if this movie did come out in theaters and it did terrible, but then just because of people not wanting to go to the theaters.
Right.
But then you release it on VOD. Then everyone's like, okay, now I am more than happy to drop $20-25 for a ticket on this movie to have it streamed in my house.
That's an important, that's an interesting point. Yeah, drop it on VOD first, get people excited about it, then see how many of them will want to go see the full effect of the film in an IMAX theater. Well, it's certainly possible. Certainly possible. Yeah.
And then there's also the fact that there are some movies that are still coming out that I think are really good test the water kind of movies. Wendy and I did a trailer reaction to Unhinged Pro, which
did you see it?
Yeah, I did.
Trailer, what'd you think?
I saw the trailer. I didn't like the trailer. I thought it was beneath Russell Crowe to be doing these kinds of movies, but I'm like, okay, sure. I mean, I guess if you want to do something, and they probably paid him a pretty penny because it was a $33 million film. That is not cheap for an independent distributed film. But this is a new company, Solstice Pictures, that's really trying to kind of get their name out there and put their footprint amongst the studios there. So they're like, we're dropping this thing July 1st by hook or crook. It doesn't matter. It's coming out. If you want to come to a theater and see it, you can. So yeah, they're dipping their toe in, and Russell Crowe's enough of a draw that you can kind of get an idea of what how people will react to it. If Tenet was to come out 17 days later, we shall see. But to me, it doesn't strike me as a film I necessarily want to see. I mean, do we want to see in 2020 yet another film of a man, an angry male chasing down a young mother in 2020? Do we want to see that? Even if she gets her revenge at the end, it's like stalking film yet again. I don't know if it's necessarily something I would run to go see myself personally. Yeah.
But I also think that is a really good movie to kind of throw into the sacrificial waters with sharks. If it actually floats,
sure,
and survives, kind of a thing.
Yeah.
And if it does absolutely horrible, it's like no one in the world sees this movie at the theaters, then you can still release it on VOD and make some money back. But I think it's going to be a perfect movie for testing to see if people are even willing to try and think of going to the movie theater.
Sure.
For sure. And I think this is a good little segue, since we're kind of on the topic of movie trailers. We have a question from Jack Robin, who emailed us in, and he says, my question for for John. I'm so used to calling you Rocha.
That's
John.
Fine. I'm cool.
My question for John does he think that movies release too much content in a 1 to 2 minute trailer? Do the trailers live up to his expectation before and after watching the movie? And what sort of genre does he prefer to watch on a day-to-day basis?
That's a good question. I think we've seen that happen more and more. This idea of, why are you showing me the whole movie? But they must be doing some kind of surveys with these people who they bring in off the street to or at malls to hey, let me show you this. Does this bother you? Do you like this? Does this excite you about the movie? Because we've gotten teaser trailers, we've gotten teaser trailers for trailers, and then we've gotten actual trailers, and then subsequent more trailers. And then we'll get the 5-minute trailer that's a combination of all the trailers. So yeah, do some movies show too much, or some studios show too much in the trailers? I think that's been happening more and more over the last few years. And I think it's because studios know they have to make as much money as they can right off the bat in the opening weekend. So they want to kind of show you what you're going to get in the movie theater when you go see this particular movie. I think it's the older generation that's like, no, I want some mystery. I don't want to be spoiled. Let me have blah, blah, blah. It's the younger generation that's, okay, what am I going to get when I get in there? Okay, cool. I got an idea. I'm going to go see it. So it's just, I think it's appealing to a different generation than some of the older of movie-going generation who wants to see one trailer and that's it,
Well, and that's the way that Wendy and I have been going back and watching some old trailers.
Yeah.
And that's the way it was. You got 1 or 2 trailers, and that's it. To where normally what you would do is you would have some kind of teaser announcement trailer, what
the voiceover for Princess Bride.
Princess Bride,
right,
and the tights, to where all you saw was that funky arrow going around, the announcement coming this summer, and then closer to the release date, you would get one more trailer. And then that's it.
Yeah.
Nowadays, like you said, we get, the announcement trailer, then the 2-minute trailer, then the 30-second TV spot, and then you get the 1-minute spot, and then coming out this weekend spot, and then in 3 days spot. And then you're like, holy cow.
I know. It's nuts. And then we're doing a special sneak peek of it in the middle of the Super Bowl or on Monday Night Football, or it's like I think they understand that the demographic they're going for, it's an ADD demographic. It likes it quick. It's a TikTok generation. They just want to see as much as possible, as quickly as possible, and then they can make up their mind. And then they'll forget about it. And 3 weeks later, oh yeah, that's right, it's coming out. Boom, and they'll go see it. So I think they're just operating from that point of view. So for me personally, yes, I do think these trailers are showing too much most of the time. But in the end, I'm not the demographic that necessarily are aiming for. So I think they're doing it for the demographic they're aiming for. And it looks like it's being successful because it keeps doubling down on itself in that way. Trailers that are just a trailer are rare nowadays. It's always the teaser trailer. It's always the first 5 seconds. And now the trailer for this, it's all of that. So, yeah.
Sure.
And the genre is, I always go back to drama. I always go back to crime dramas Those are my genres always. That's my main genre when I'm watching TV or flipping channels. I'm looking for a mystery, a crime drama mystery that I can enjoy. Usually that's kind of the thing that gets me and my girlfriend into watching something. So it's usually that genre, to be honest with you.
Sure. Not when you're unless you're watching Transformer films.
I
I know you like those. That's your like guilty pleasure. Like
Yep.
I have mine too. Like I'm not gonna like I love the first Twilight movie. I have it on DVD and I just bring it out and watch it time to time. I don't care. It's I'm watching it. I'm not forcing anyone else to watch it with me.
Exactly.
Like, you don't have to like it, but let me like it.
Yeah. I will say the Transformers films in 4K are beautiful. So
really?
Yeah, gorgeous.
Bumblebee,
Even if you don't like the movies, they're gorgeous to look at.
Favorite. The first Transformers and Bumblebee are probably my two.
Yeah.
Faves.
Oh yeah.
Bumblebee by far is my favorite out of the Transformers because I think even watching the first Transformers movie, I was a little disappointed. I was still like, okay, this is cool action, this is cool fun.
I had a lot of fun with it,
but for some reason it didn't quite satisfy me.
Mm-hmm.
But it was still, Bumblebee. I was like, oh, this is amazing.
Yeah, a lot of people love that one. That's for sure.
Mm-hmm. We have a super chat from Dark Faith 66. Thank you so much for your support. Great recent interview with Robert. Is it Robert Meyer Burnett?
Yeah.
Nice. What did you talk about?
Yeah, he came on the Outlaw Nation show, which is my show every Tuesday night that I do on the channel. We had a really great time. We talked for about 2.5 hours. Robert stuck around for 2.5 hours. We talked about Star Wars and Star Trek, how he got his hands on that Colin Trevorrow script for episode 9 that possibly was going to be the one that he shot. We talked about how he started his YouTube channel, how that's been going down, and we talked a lot of memories of Collider Heroes and John Schnepp. And I will say this, I'll tease it for anybody who hasn't watched it yet. I get to finally apologize to Robert for not being able to bring him on to that tribute episode for John. And that meant a lot to me to be able to say to him, I'm sorry we couldn't bring you on. There were decisions that were out of my hand as the producer of the show, but I want you to know I wanted you there. And unfortunately, we couldn't make it happen. So that was really nice to be able to close the book on that. And Robert is so gracious, such a gentleman, so much fun. And, he's so knowledgeable about film and about story and about plot and about script development, because people think he's just the Schmodown guy. Robert has decades of history in the business, writing stuff. Huh? What's that?
Didn't he used to work on like behind the scenes DVD, Blu-ray release stuff?
He shot those things and interviewed people for all the Next Generation stuff. A lot of titles have Robert Meyer Burnett's fingerprints all over their special features because he directed a lot of those and set a lot of those up. But he was also he read scripts in New York for like 2 years for an agency. So Robert has all kinds of experience up and down the spectrum of jobs you can have, up unto director. He directed that film with Eric McCormack and William Shatner. So it was great to spend a little time with him and hear his points of views about everything. He was awesome. So if you haven't watched it, you should definitely watch it or listen to it on the Outlaw Nation Podcast Network. You can go find that wherever you download podcasts. You can just listen to it there doing that. Yeah.
There you go. Thank you so much, Darkface66, for your super chat. And we also have another one from Weston Iro. Thank you so much for sending this in. Outlaw, we need to talk about that thumbnail. Are you referring to the one? It's probably the one that I picked for today's. Like, I try to just pick like a fun one that kind of showcases like characteristics. So I was kind of like, you're like, and I was like, that's very Rocha. Like when he's like in his competitive mode, it's very much me, which is why I hope you don't mind.
No, it was perfect. It was a great thumbnail because I also host a pro wrestling show on the channel called Strong Style, and it's in honor of this wrestler that I really like called Shinsuke Nakamura and the style of Japanese professional wrestling, which is strong style. A lot of strong hits, forceful hits in the flow and technique of a match. And so I wanted us to come out big time, like strong style. And so Brian Ward, when he was coming up with the idea of what to do for the logo and what to do for the video to open the show, he was like, have you ever thought about doing some poses in the hat? But I was like, perfect. So I just put on a bunch of wrestling shirts and did different poses and sent them all to Brian and Aaron, my co-host, Aaron Turner, my co-host. He did the same thing. So that's where that picture comes from. And it's a strong style shirt from Shinsuke Nakamura, me ripping the shirt open and screaming. But yes, Wendy is absolutely right. That is a competitive mode when I'm playing in the Schmodown. So yeah.
Yeah, that's like I imagine one of your like entrances or like when you get a question right that people doubted you. Like how Superman does the thing, you know?
Yeah, right, exactly.
We just need one that says like outlaw. You could be like outlaw.
Those are coming. Those are coming for sure. Oh yeah, merch is
Outlaw
coming.
Nation t-shirts.
Yeah, there will be Outlaw Nation t-shirts. I tried to get a mask, but there wasn't enough time.
I think masks are some people are gonna choose to wear it, you know, for a while. So I say, you know, better late than never.
Yeah, not a bad idea, right?
You can go get that done. Should we move on to our next topic here?
I'm in your hands. Whatever you guys want to do.
Let's do it. I just got to find my banner. Okay. So I picked this because we've been talking a lot about theme parks on our various live streams, just kind of keep everybody a little updated on what's going on around the world. So Universal Studios Orlando plans to reopen on June 5th. And this includes obviously both theme parks, Universal Studios Orlando and Islands of Adventure, and the water park, Volcano Bay, which is like, that's a no from me, dog. Without the COVID.
Without the COVID going
Right.
I'm still kind of iffy about going to water parks. Kind of thing.
I remember I used to go as a kid all the time, and then like as an adult, I'm like, this is unsanitary. Why am I?
And also just a little bit out of the water, you can just smell the level of chlorine that they put into the water just to make it that extra safe.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So Universal Studios Orlando issued a warning to the would-be guests, and they say basically this like statement is on their website, similar to the one that Disney Springs put out before they were reopened, basically warning the public that where people are present, it does provide an inherent risk of exposure to COVID-19, and they cannot guarantee that you will not be exposed during your visit. And it also lists other restrictions like masks are required. If you don't have one will be provided for you, which I think is kind of nice, because if you're here already, why turn the people away? You might as well make some money while you're there. They're not going to have valet parking. There's going to be no interactive play areas, which is good because I can't imagine wiping that down. They're going to do limited capacity. They're going to do temperature checks for staffs and visitor. And then in the restaurants, all the menus are going to be single paper use, so you just toss it out.
Wow.
And then some of the other things that they're going to do. So June 1st is going to be an employee dry run. On June 3rd, they're going to, I guess, receive some VIPs, just kind of like, I guess, another version of a dry run. And then they will officially reopen on June 5th. What's your take on all this?
I mean, this is the Florida ones, right?
Yeah, Florida one's not here.
I'm not surprised by that. Oh, because Ron DeSantis, the governor there, he's been itching to keep things open. He's the one that controversially said that WWE is essential, which is maybe one of the most ridiculous decisions ever said. And I love pro wrestling, and I'll tell you that was a dumb idea. But it's not a surprise. You know, there's a lot of pressure on these Republican governors from Trump on down to like keep things open and get things going and get people to the parks. And I also, by the other side of things, just to be fair, people need to work. People want to work. People are struggling to pay their bills, struggling to make ends meet. You know, unemployment does help, but there's not enough of it to go around, I think, for people to like be able to relax for a little bit until this thing passes. You know, unfortunately, these packages that were passed by Congress are helping these major corporations, but they're not really helping the little guy or the little girl down there who's struggling, and the small business owner. There's not enough there to keep them to be able to pay their bills for a few months while this thing passes. So there's this pressure now that builds up that people want to work, people want to get out there, people want to be distracted, they want to go to these parks. So I get the intention of why it's happening. I think it's a little bit nefarious on DeSantis's part, but I think on the other side, from the workers' point of view, they want to go back. And Wendy, you're a big fan of Disney. How many people who work there like love working there because it helps them take their minds off their lives themselves and maybe are not as good. They love to disappear into the world of Disney. And so I think you can't discount that when it comes to mental health type of stuff. People need that kind of thing to hold on to and need to feel needed and need to work, an intrinsic need to work. So although I may not be happy about it, and I'm not happy about it because I think it's way too soon, because it's 2 weeks away or less. I understand why they're doing it. I just wonder what's going to happen. We're seeing people getting mad at Walmarts in smaller numbers, in places with smaller numbers. A Red Lobster, what are they going to do if like 30 people show up without a mask as a protest? Are they going to stop them from coming into the park? Will there be physical altercations if people take off their masks and throw them away once they get in the park? I don't know what's going to happen because Wendy, you and I worked at parks. Dustin, you know too.
Oh, yeah.
People who go to parks can be quite a bag of jerks when they get in there and do what they want to do, and they could give two shits about you as an employee sometimes. So that's what concerns me about this situation.
Yeah, it's like underneath the best circumstances. I think opening up is, one, a huge risk, but also we have to have to start getting going. And you can put all of these things in place. The one thing that will just throw the biggest wrench in the gears are the jerks, are the assholes, are the people that just don't care about anyone else but themselves.
Yeah.
I think personally, if you were to open it and you didn't have to worry about that small percentage of the population, I think it'd be fine. Everyone's wearing a mask. Everyone has hand sanitizers on them. They're making sure not to touch something, cough all over it, and then put it back on the shelves.
Right.
Especially like when you're talking about all of the merchandise.
Yeah. Yeah.
I've seen it hundreds of times when I was working at different theme parks. People look at it. Oh, look at this. They're looking at it. They're like, have it right up close to their face. They put the hats on their heads. They put them back on the shelf.
Yep.
Yeah.
And, it's just something that us as a society does have to, if you want to be able to go to these theme parks, go to these stores, you're gonna have to start not being a jerk anymore.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, all of us, right? All of us can fill, I don't know, dumpsters full of stories of people that we've encountered in the best of circumstances who still feel the need to complain about something with the park that's happening that day.
Give my child enough attention.
Right.
I waited in line for 10 minutes in the sun. I was like, look, Karen, so did 10 people. I will never forget. And before I hop into this, I just want to give a quick shout out to our friend, Alex Robinson here.
Oh, yeah, Alex.
Hey, I worked at Universal Studios Hollywood. I didn't know that. Did you know that?
No, I did not know that.
Universal buddies.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, me, Rocha, and Alex.
Nice.
And Dustin. Sorry.
I didn't work there for very long. I was only I don't count because I'm seasonal.
Well,
sorry. It's a different world. It's a different world once you go full time. But he says, I work at Universal Studios Hollywood, so I'm hoping this opening for Orlando works out for the best because it will give us a good idea of how we will reopen. That is very true. Yeah. That being said, it's Florida, so
exactly.
We need, I hate to put it this way, but we need some guinea pigs.
Oh, that's a bad way to put it.
It's a really bad way to
put it.
We have seen other countries that, Shanghai Disney opened up. They kind of look at what they did, see what worked, see what didn't, and kind of implement what we think will work and what doesn't.
The one thing I think they shouldn't reopen is Volcano Bay. I have very mixed feelings about that, about a water park.
Yeah.
Like you can't sanitize the water. What are you going to do? Have people swim in Lysol?
Yeah. That's a good point.
Extra chlorine for everybody.
Everyone comes out of the water and their hair is just white because of all like the bleach and chlorine that they put in there. Everyone has hair on their body is just like burned and singed off.
Yeah.
It's true.
In the capacity of both of us having worked in the parks, you and I both worked in like the meet and greet section.
Yeah.
Side of the park, but in a different capacity because can I say or no?
Yeah, of course. I don't care.
You played two different roles. The train conductor inside the Wizarding World of Harry Potter, as well as the wand keeper. And that gives you not so much when you're in the shop, because yes, you're in a contained room with a lot of people. So imagine that without masks, but when you're the conductor and people come right up to you and they want to do poses and things like that, like, how do you think people are going to approach that now? Because like for me, my capacity was mascot character. So Minions, the girls, Woody Woodpecker, Bart Simpson, my favorite character to play. But like, for me, it's kind of like in a way, I have a barrier, kind of.
Yeah.
What are you gonna do if people come up, they're still touching the character? So what do you like Lysol down the minion every time they come on set?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think remember every once in a while when it's too hot, we go out with an assistant right? And so you have someone who is kind of from the park who's monitoring things, or when it gets too busy, you have someone there who's kind of monitoring things and making sure you don't get overwhelmed. So I think every single one of those people who comes out wearing what you're talking about is going to have a park employee, and they may hire new park employees to train them at this point to be like the companion for every one of these people that comes out, so that when a picture is taken or they get a bit close, they are wiped down, they are Lysol down by the other, because like, I know we want to create this idea that it's a fantasy world and all this kind of stuff, but people don't need to die to create some ridiculous fantasy world that we know isn't a real fantasy world. So, you know, you can, I think people will allow a suspension of disbelief for a certain amount of time so that people can, the performers can get themselves wiped down. For the conductor, I don't know what you do. Do you wear a mask? Is that like, that's not, you know, the costume. And, you know, JK was really anal about the costumes. She was like, it has to look this way. You have to wear them this way. There is no diverging from that. We got in so much trouble if our tie was loosened, or if it was unbuttoned, or if if there was a button missing on the vest, or if the watch wasn't in your pocket, you would get into some trouble. You know, so those are those things you have to adhere to. With Wand Keeper, I wonder how they're going to do Wand Keeper. I mean, our shows were 30 people in a room, 10-minute show or 7-minute shows, and you get them in, get them out. I don't know.
Everybody's breathing towards you.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Everybody's breathing towards us, and you have to bring them to the desk. So do you give them from 6 feet away? Do you give them the wand and give them the whole spiel? I don't know. I don't know.
That's going to be a lot of readjustments. I think, unfortunately, kind of like how you said, like, I think we'll see how Florida does, assuming that Florida theme parks, once they reopen, see how they kind of alter the way they do their shows and their interactions. And then I'm pretty sure California, if they're not already planning it, I'm sure that they're having Zoom calls every single day and be like, okay, how are we going to do this? Like, you know, like, do you do like when you're meeting a transformer, like, you know, the transformers are like inside their own little lined box.
Yeah. Because, like a 12-foot box.
And it's kind of like, you have to like stand in this spot, stand inside this bubble.
Right.
Take the photo, and it's like, okay, I'll see you later. No high fives, no fist bumps. It's just
that's just going to be a huge cultural change as well.
Yeah.
You know, I work at a kids museum, and so many times I'm used to going up to kids and be like, yeah, high five, how you doing? Right. Knuckle bump. I'm used to all of this interaction, and now it's going to be so hard for me to change that, because even right before we were starting to shut down, I was still kind of like, high five, no.
Right.
Yeah.
I wonder if they'll stop you from having pictures with them, or you have to keep that 6 feet of distance. So you're taking wider picture shots. I wonder, because I mean, I don't think any of these performers should be put in harm's way for these people who come in, especially people coming in from other countries. You don't know what they are doing, how they approach it, because it's culturally different for certain countries than our country. You just don't know how they're going to approach this kind of thing. And so you have to factor that in. I mean, all of us get sick working at that park anyway from regular sickness, from fans who come up and are coughing and sneezing and don't, COVID, it makes it even worse.
Yeah, because it's super contagious too.
Yes, it is.
That non-Americans actually might be better at doing the mask wearing, and might be better at doing this, I hate to say it, but I think Americans are just very selfish when it comes to a lot of things.
Yeah.
So,
well, I don't think they're the only ones. I'll be honest with you. Having worked in the park, I've seen people from France and Germany and Italy and Spain and Russia and China. I've seen them all come in and be really cool. And there are some from every country that are just selfish and just think of themselves and push past other people that are in line so their kids can get the photos ahead of time. I mean, with the conductor thing, I see that all the time. And because, I don't mind being a bit of an asshole, I was always as conductor, no, not your turn. Yeah, they've been waiting. You will wait there and we'll get you in just a minute. It was always like that kind of, I never had a problem with that, doing that. So, but I saw it all the time when they tried to shove their kids ahead of other people who were waiting in line because they have their schedule that they want to adhere to while they're doing the park. So you have to always be aware of that. Yeah.
Have you had an encounter of I won't name the celebrity. I won't name the celebrity, but have you had an encounter where they go, don't you know who I am?
Fortunately, I have not. And I had a couple of people in my room. I had Charlize Theron in my room with her son, her adopted son, which was great. And they just came in just as regular customers. And she didn't want her son to be taken, or chosen rather. She didn't want him to have any special treatment. They said us ahead of time, Charlize is coming in. She's with the rest of the group, but she does not want you to choose her son. She just wants him to enjoy the show. And I'm like, great, perfect. And she rolled with it. There was no extra stuff. So I've never seen that from celebrities. I've seen it more from those executives who rent out for the night, the park. I've seen that kind of behavior from those people. Yeah, who want to alternately make fun of you and alternately expect you to kiss their butt when you're doing their show. So I've seen that before for sure.
Yeah. I think that for me that was easier to stomach because I was like behind a a smiley face character. So I was kind of like, yeah, your words don't hurt me. I don't care. I'm still getting paid.
Right.
I'm having fun. But I did have one celebrity, and that was the only one out of like the 3.5-4 years that I was at the theme park. That one celebrity coming up to me and them saying, "Don't you know who I am?" I'm like, I do know who you are, and I don't care. Get in line. Your child is not a Make-A-Wish kid, so get back there. We had Alicia Keys come up, and she waited in line in the hot sun with everybody. She just like Charlize didn't want special treatment.
Right.
And she was kind of like, okay, say thank you, be respectful. And I was like, can everybody be more like you? Thanks.
Well, that's why the VIP people who work at the parks are so essential if those people pay for the VIP experience, because then the VIPs know who they can talk to get them in, if the celebrities are cool standing in line, or if they want to kind of get ahead of the line, what time they can bring them by, so that's an easier situation for them to do. So you rely on them very much to be able to do that. But Wendy, I've heard those stories from other people who are lifers at the park about celebrities who've come in and expecting the world to fall at their feet because they deigned to come in through the gates of Universal Studios. It's ridiculous.
It's like, if you want the special treatment, then seeing how you are the person that you are.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Pay for it.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah, for real. Rocha and I have so many theme parks.
So many.
Not that we would. And we also have a super chat from Mr. Christopher Mendez. Woo! Writes, a new Star Wars movie is potentially opening in 2022 and possibly being about the High Republic. Yeah. What story would you want to see if you had a choice, Rocha?
Wow, that's a great question. Specifically, I don't know if there's anything specifically that just jumps out at me, but I like the idea that they're kind of bringing back the atmosphere of the Jedi being good again. We've been so obsessed for decades with Vader and the Sith, and they're so cool and they're so badass. And you're like, yeah, I love Obi-Wan. Obi-Wan is great. I love Luke. He's great. But Darth Vader, that's awesome. What are we getting out of Kylo Ren? But the Palpatine. So I hear that they're going to focus more on when the Jedi were good, when the Jedi were the power in the galaxy. So for me, I want to see like uplifting stories and hopeful stories and positive stories. And because we've done enough of the gray area of good and bad, let's move into being good now for a little bit to kind of give people hope again about the property and the franchise and remind people that the Jedi were good. And I know Ahsoka Tano and her problems with the council, and I totally respect that. But for the most part, the Jedi did keep the order. They were good. And I would like us to remember that they symbolize that. So hopefully a story that focuses on a character that has that within him or her, I'm absolutely down with.
What about you?
Yeah. Well, also, despite the fact that you're saying like, oh yeah, focus on the Jedi. One story that I would actually like to see is like the Darth Revan.
Sure.
Switches back a couple of times from good. He starts off as a Jedi, dark side, then turns back. And to see this storyline of someone who is so conflicted between the light and the dark. And I mean, this story can be done very poorly. I mean, we kind of saw it in the new sequels with Kylo Ren, where he was pulled between the light and the dark. But to see that point of view being able to be changed, and I think if they focused on the storytelling a little differently, they could actually tell a very deep story of someone who is sensitive to both sides. And being able to constantly get pulled in different directions. Well, I think that center line is very important to the good and the bad of the Jedi.
It's a great point, Dustin. And I think they were trying to do that with Rey as well, but they kind of fumbled the ball in that last installment, in my opinion. By all of a sudden, she's connected to, spoiler alert, to the Emperor, and you're like, well, okay, so now we have to go look at it all through retrospect. So I think if they had worked that angle out more powerfully throughout all three episodes of that trilogy, I think we'd have really enjoyed that story as well, as much as people enjoyed Kylo's story. You know, seeing her struggling with these darker impulses of herself, which we didn't get really until the last installment. So I would have liked to have seen more of that. So I take your point, and hopefully that is something they do explore with Darth Revan. That would be fun.
That would be fun. And for me, I think I'm ready to see a story that hasn't been explored yet, and in a timeline that hasn't been explored yet. I think I'm satisfied with everything I'm not satisfied, but we've gotten so much of like the Skywalker saga.
Yeah.
That I think it is time to let that one be.
Yeah.
And let's go ahead and we have so many great minds right now working around Star Wars. We have Filoni, we have, Jon Favreau, we got Taika coming out with a film. So it's just Deborah Chow is going to do the Obi-Wan series. So I think there's so many talented and passionate people that can bring a very different sort of storytelling and different ways to shoot a Star Wars film, do something fun and innovative with it. That's what I want to see. I don't even care if it's not a character that I know. I think I would prefer that. I wanted to just refresh my love for Star Wars, something different, something new.
And
absolutely
something like this, like the either like the Old Republic or the High Republic, being able to just be, you get to play with Star Wars.
Yeah.
Everything is new.
Yeah.
All of the characters, the struggles, the politics, everything. There's going to be very few things that you can actually attach to the other movies. So it's kind of like, okay, you can still play in the sandbox of Star Wars, but now go do whatever you want.
Exactly. Go have fun with it.
As long as you have a good story, you now can play in this brand new sandbox.
Yeah, for sure. And we're getting a little bit short on time, so I want to make sure that we are getting to some of the viewer questions that they have for you. So this one comes from Vanja, who writes, John Rocha, Arthur Morgan or John Marston? They're talking about Red Dead Redemption.
Ooh. I guess John Marston. John Marston is my choice there.
Yeah, maybe who you think is stronger?
Yeah. I like the John Marston aspect. I like that character a little bit more.
Who do you think you can relate to more?
It's a good question. Well, let me think about it. We'll circle back to that. All
right. And we have one from our Patreon, Courtney Rose, all the way from Australia, not Austria.
Nice.
Australia. And she writes, "G'day, guys. My favorite Aussie band, Powderfinger, who are sadly no longer together, put on a quarantine concert through YouTube tonight, supporting an Aussie mental health organization.
Nice.
Which band, still together or not, or musician would you like to see put on a quarantine concert? Got to get yourself to Western Australia next time, Rocha."
Yeah. I mean, I was sent on set visits for that, so I was limited amount of time down there, and I certainly didn't want my body clock to adjust to Australia time, so that I'd have to come back and adjust back to America time. So the smart thing you do when you do set visits in Australia is go down, spend that 1 day sightseeing, go to sleep like you would normally go to sleep, wake up and do the set visit, and then get on the plane as immediately as possible the next morning, so your body never adjusts. So you don't have to necessarily come back and be all messed up for a week. So those are the dangerous parts of traveling in Australia that I discovered. But I mean, the question. Sorry, what was the question? I was just talking about
if there were any musician or band, whether they're together or not, who would you like to see put on a beneficial concert?
Like alive or dead, Prince, but currently working now. Oh man, that's a great question. Now, look, I know people are going to hate me for this answer, and feel free to hate me, but I would love to see Jay-Z and Kanye again. I mean, that concert when they were here in LA was one of my favorite. I mean, it's a 3-hour concert. It was one of the most incredible things I've ever seen. And
like Kanye.
I know I love Kanye. I do. I love Kanye. The nuttiness outside of whatever he does off the stage, I can't abide. But when he's on the stage, he's fantastic. And I love his raps and I love his style. So, and Jay-Z, of course, both those guys. So that would be my choice. But Prince is my ultimate choice. But certainly those two would be a close second of the people who are alive.
Nice.
Yeah. I would probably love to either see, if we're talking about dead or alive, I'd love to see a Queen.
Yeah.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
same
a
wavelength.
Queen concert.
Yeah.
Or if we're talking about a live, I was thinking like Green Day. I'm actually kind of a big Green Day fan.
Okay.
Or I also really I've never gotten to see him in concert, but I really want to. Bruno Mars.
Yep.
Okay.
Bruno Mars would be good. I got to go the K-pop route. I want a big
I respect that.
Just like a big YG family reunion with Blackpink, Big Bang, and 21. That would be like the dream. And then you can throw in like BTS, Red Velvet, Twice. Just throw them all in there, all my favorite ones. Put them in. That's what I would want. That's why I was so bummed about this year's Coachella, because they're canceling it, I think, even though it's October. And Big Bang was supposed to come back and like that was going to be their comeback. They were going to go on stage and perform. And I was like, I haven't seen them in years. Like a couple of them, I think they went into the army because it's mandatory service in Korea. So they haven't been like performing at all as a group. And I was like, oh my God, I'm going to watch the live stream. This is going to be great. And now it's not going to happen, at least not in October, but we will see.
Yeah.
And then we have clarification about the question of Arthur Morgan.
Okay.
Marston. It's which one's your favorite?
Well, I would say Morgan. I mean, Morgan's my favorite. Marston is the old school man's man type of thing. You know, he's like, he left his family, he did his own thing. He, you know, fought off wolves and hit off in the cliffs. Like it's very the old school manly type thing. You know, when I was your age, I walked to school in the snow. Morgan is more of the progressive, you know, he attends a women's rights rally in the damn game. So, you know, it's pretty incredible what Arthur Morgan does. So how can you not slide into Arthur Morgan? But I have a little bit of an affinity for John Marston because I like the fact that he's an outlaw, so to speak. He's an outlaw from what people would expect. So I appreciate both of them for different reasons. But obviously the Morgan is more of the white hat hero, whereas Marston is more of the anti-hero. So that's how I break those two down.
Great answer. And we have another question from Debbie in Sync Chick 8877, who writes, Rocha, what would you like to see get the Last Dance treatment, either sports person or team? Kind of want the 86 Mets to get it.
Oh, the Miracle Mets. Oh, that's a nice choice. Ooh, wow.
This one's on you because it's sports, and you know I'm not a sports.
I know this is kind of current, but I mean, it would be difficult to do now because Kobe passed. But I think exploring that dynamic between him and Shaq and the issues that they had is just rife for drama for a documentary, all the way up to where Shaq left and Jerry West chose Kobe over Shaq and made it clear to him. And I think Jerry Buss, who still owned the team, made it clear they weren't going to keep Shaq. They were keeping Kobe. They valued Kobe more. And then Phil Jackson, of course, coming in and coaching both of them to titles. It would have been interesting. I think that's an interesting one to explore because a lot of people forget how intelligent Kobe was. You know, he was not your normal high school kid. He studied in Italy. He knew 8 languages coming into the NBA. This wasn't your normal rookie kid who's coming from a poor home, who's struggling and wants to pay, make a big contract and pay and buy his mom a house and take care of his family. This is a kid who came from means, who was very educated, well-educated, and came into the league versus someone like Shaq, who is from not the best means, but also fought hard. And, Shaq's approach to it is I'll get to it when I get to it. Kobe's approach to it is I'm going to work on it all the time. And so to see those guys clash, that would be very interesting to explore that on a basketball level, to where they leave and Shaq tells him, how does my ass taste? That kind of stuff. So. which he did rap that to Kobe. So.
Oh my God. I wasn't expecting that comment. That kind of threw me for a loop. That's great. All right, one more question, and this one comes from Weston Iro. Keep one, get rid of one. Bad Company or Wanted, dead or alive?
Ooh. You don't get rid of Dead or Alive. That's
good answer.
That's a great song. If we could get away with copyrighted songs in the Schmodown, Wanted, Dead or Alive, or Blaze of Glory from Bon Jovi, both those would have been my choice for walkout songs, because those are great modern cowboy Western songs that I would have totally used. And Bad Company is good, but it's nowhere near a Wanted, Dead or Alive. That'll stop a stadium full of people to listen. Whereas Bad Company is a fun rock song. This is like an epic song. So it qualifies as higher to me.
What's been your favorite Schmodown entrance so far that you've done? I know you've done many.
That's a good question.
Yeah.
I think it has to be the one I did for the first live event at North Hollywood, where I didn't know what to expect. I was taking on JTE. He spoke first. And this was when they did our promos in highlights. Like they put the spotlights would come down and each one would step into the spotlight. Huh?
Right? You had to come out and like say your
stuff. Yeah. You did your promo before the match. So they put one spotlight here. JT did his, and then of course he left, and they took the spotlight down, and then they put the second spotlight on for me. And for whatever reason, I just went down on one knee, and then people started chanting, and I let it build. I didn't say anything, and then I just went, "Outlaw Nation!" And it was just incredible to hear the response from the crowd. And it was all improv. It's all just kind of feeling it as a performer. Wendy, you know, as a performer, you can sense the audience and what they're giving you. And they went along with me on that promo. So I would say that's probably my favorite entrance ever, because then it led to me coming down the aisle like 2 minutes later and for high-fiving people, and people were standing up, and it was a blast. So I would say that's still my favorite entrance ever.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Look at that. The real Mr. Robinson says, I was there for that first live show and you nailed that.
Thank you, Alex. That's very kind of you, brother.
Do you remember what you did beforehand, though? Do you remember any of it?
Beforehand?
Right before you went on?
No. Why? Do you? Please tell me.
Because this was at that one theater, like near the Metro, right?
Yeah, El Portal. Yeah,
yes.
North Hollywood.
Okay, yeah, I'm pretty sure I was there at that one because it was such a crazy day, and I remember like calling Alex on the phone. I was like, I can't find parking. I have all these water bottles and I can't find parking, and I was all like upset and stuff. But I remember going in, and the show's about to start, and I didn't want to be like down because it wasn't like the holding area downstairs for everybody.
Right.
I didn't want to be down there because there was so much going on. I wanted to actually see it. So like Christian was like nice, and he was kind of like, well, I actually roped off this like little section for you guys. So I sat where Christian Ruvalcaba was, and he was the camera. Maybe it was Cody Hall, but I sat with kind of those guys because I knew they had to kill certain seats because of the camera. So I had a great like just view, and I remember trying to find my way through this like dark underground thing, and I was like, where is the entrance to the theater? And then I finally found it before I ran, and I saw you, and you had your hat, and it was the curtain, and it had this like weird blue purple light backstage, and you just sat in front of a curtain, just like, I don't know if you were meditating, and you were just so focused. And I kind of, in my head, I was going to come up to you and be like, are you okay? Don't stress out. You're going to be fine. You're going to do great. You stress yourself out before every, like anything, anything. Cause you put so much pressure on yourself to want to do well. That I think sometimes I was like, no, it's going to be okay. I promise you. So focused. I was like, I should just leave him alone. But that was like, I kind of wish I took a photo of you.
Oh, someone did at the free for all 2 years ago. And I'm in the backstage with my hat tipped down, and I had no idea they were there. And I just was listening to my music, meditating, and they took a picture of it and put it up, which is pretty cool. So yeah, but I was so nervous before that I was just like, please don't lose. Please don't lose. Please. The JT has beat me in teams so many times. I gotta beat him. So I was just like trying to calm my nerves down, and staring at something kind of centers me. So I was just like kind of focused on that, but I had no idea you had caught me there.
Yeah, and I was kind of like, I was like, nope, just gonna leave him alone. Yeah, no, you did really great. I actually had a lot of fun watching that. I missed a lot of it because I was making sure all the contestants were coming out during the right time for like
right.
But it was a damn good show.
That's for sure. Yeah.
Well, John, thank you so much for taking time out on your Saturday to hang out with us. It's been so good to catch up with you. I know we didn't get to really talk about one of our favorite shows that's on TV right now, but it is renewed for a third season, What We Do in the Shadow.
Yeah.
You're excited about it, and we're excited about it.
I am. I love that show. And thank you guys for having me on. This is a blast. Wendy, it's always good to see you. Dustin, it's always good catching up, my man. So thank you all for having me so much. And look, I'm following your lead. Your YouTube show, your YouTube channel is so successful. And Wendy, we worked together for years. I've seen how hard you've worked to build this thing up. And, your work ethic cannot be, as much as people talk about, the shows Rocha's doing, Wendy's work ethic is incredible. She will, I mean, if there's a trailer that drops, everything gets shoved away and Wendy focuses on shooting it. And I'm still learning how to get into that rhythm of those kinds of things. So I watch you and I try to follow your example of what you guys have built there at the Movie Couple. So thank you so much for having me on. It was my honor, to be honest.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much for oh my god.
Yeah, thanks so
It's true. It's true. It's true.
For the last time before you go, where can everybody find you all over social media?
Yeah, please. You can find me at The Rocha Says on Twitter and on Instagram, and come and follow me there. Instagram trying to get that thing above 20,000. Twitter trying to get that thing above 35,000. But also you can follow me on Twitch. I'm on Twitch now. We're going to start dropping a bunch of shows, hanging out there, doing weird things. The Outlaw Nation, all one word, lowercase. Come and follow me there. And my YouTube channel, of course, www.youtube.com/John Rocha Says, youtube.com/John Rocha Says. Get us above 15,000 subscribers as soon as we can, and then marching towards 20,000 as soon as we can, building this thing up. What's that?
Where are you right now?
I'm at 13.3, about to cross 13.3. So just building step by step, so.
In my head, man. I had you at like 25.
Yeah, I wish. I think if I had come out of the gate in January with a little better a plan, I would have gotten more people on board quicker. So I just have to catch up and build, Dan Merle, who's really kind of been incredible. He had time to build up what he was going to do. He knew he was going to leave. But when you get sucker punched the second day of the year in 2020, it was hard to like find my feet again. So, but if I had time to plan, I think we'd have had a better rollout. But it's a marathon, not a sprint. And I'm really proud of how the channel has grown in the last 3 months from where it was. So, sometimes it takes a little bit of time to get it right, but once you do, then you start moving forward. And it's been great to see the responses from so many of the people who follow the channel and watch the channel that they love what we're creating there at Outlaw Nation. So step by step, that's how it goes.
Step by step, stone by stone. And you're doing so great. You have such great insight on stuff. So the content, people are going to come back for the content. They're going to come back for you, and they're going to come back for the content. So like you said, it's definitely a marathon, and it's once you hit that like certain rhythm, everything's going to snowball. Yeah. Everything's just going to snowball.
Thank you, Wendy. I appreciate that.
Well, I want to thank you again. I want to thank all of our viewers for everybody's questions, for our Patreons, and all the super chats. Thank you guys so much. Make sure you follow Rocha everywhere, and we will see you guys on the next live stream. Bye.